What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio. Today we are going to learn how to be great at building relationships. My guest is my good friend Nico Golfar. Most people just know him as Nico. He's considered like a connector, a celebrity wrangler, an A-list party planner. He definitely knows more famous people than you'll ever know. And if you happen to be a billionaire, I know we have a lot of billionaires listening to this show. He's a guy that you want to create exclusive experiences for you and your friends and family. Really interesting career. He's going to take us through the history of how he got to this point and how he really is so great at what he calls collecting people. Surprisingly, for somebody in his job, he says that someone's title and paycheck should make no difference in the way that you treat them. I love that philosophy, and I love the stories he tells about how that all came together for him. And now let's get into the interview with Nico. Showing off the Air Force Ones, proper.
I'm a bit of a Nike obsessive. I have a lot. We could talk about this if you want to.
Go ahead. Talk about it now. We'll start
Why
with
is it on?
the shoe business.
No, whatever. You just started. I've never done this before, so just.
No, but what were you saying about Nikes?
That when you're my size,
Yeah.
you can't walk into a store and buy like jeans or shirts off the peg.
Right.
So you buy shoes.
Yeah.
So I have a ridiculous shoe collection of all types of shoes, because don't look at this, look at that.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we roll with decent shoes, right?
Yeah, I like that. I've always found like you can get by with like, plain stuff if the shoes look right.
So my sister, as you may or may not know, she's the editor-at-large of British Vogue.
Yeah.
And she has a theory. You know when you see an ad and it's a person wearing head-to-toe like Prada,
Yeah.
suit Prada shoes, that's not style.
No.
Style's when you can wear like raggedy jeans, a nicest shirt, the
Yeah.
shoes are good, a good watch, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's you make up the collection of things that show you off. Not show you off, but
Yeah.
represent you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't wear jewelry, I wear watches.
Right.
So I have a watch collection.
Yeah.
'Cause, I don't look in the heels anymore. It's not a good look.
No, that's good. I'm surprised to hear that from Vogue, but
Yeah,
like
because it's the art of style. What is style?
Yeah.
I mean, remember when Rick Rubin used to roll around town? Here's this guy, hadn't shaved, hair was
looks
out here,
homeless.
overweight, white T-shirt and jeans, and then rocks up in the Bentley.
yeah.
It's not about... The other one that does that is, what's his name? I'm blanking. He's one of those, another one of those minted dudes.
Is that right?
That he's jeans and a white T-shirt and stuff. So you would pay no attention to him.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that inverted snobbery of...
Well, I think it's interesting. Like I remember, Dante Ross. He's a guy that he worked for Def Jam early
Yes,
on.
yeah.
A&R guy. He's an old friend of mine, and I heard him tell a story once about like when he first got his job at Def Jam, and they sent him off on some assignment to go. He had to like go deliver something basically, and he got all dressed up. I don't know if he put on a suit or whatever, but he shows up. Russell sees him. He's like, never again.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not. You got to be you instead of trying to be who you think they want you to be.
I had that experience.
Yeah?
My first ever interview for a job. I was maybe 16 something, and
Okay. What was the job?
Well, so I knew from the age of about 13, 14 that I wanted to be around music and that sort of stuff. So about 15, 16, because in England you could leave school around then.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to hang out at studios for a long time. So I thought, okay, I'll go get a job. I'll go for an interview at a studio. So my father, who was a really successful, proper businessman, was all about suits and hair and shoes and put together. Like he was always at the barber, really smart gent. And so I went for an interview at a recording studio in a three-piece suit and tie.
Yeah. Proper lad.
A proper lad. And I get there, and I remember the guy going, "So what experience do you have?" And in my head, in hindsight, I was like, "Well, I'm 15. I know how to make a wicked cup of tea," which
Don't you
is
see the suit?
pretty much what I'm going to be doing for the next few years. I can make a mean cup of tea, and I read all the right magazines.
Yeah.
And I was so traumatized because that happened at, I remember the studios, and one of them was Air. And I just went, right, I'm never wearing a tie again.
Yeah.
And for years, I wouldn't wear a tie, and just because I was so, like, as he said, wrong situation, wrong outfit. You didn't
Sure.
read. It's like what we have to do now in our gigs.
Yeah.
You got to read a room,
Yeah.
right? You got to read a room, and you got to interpret how are we going to handle this.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of how I learned to, from that experience, read a room.
That's great. That's a great lesson. So that's a good place to start. What I want to do is kind of go back to the beginning, and we'll work our way up.
Okay.
And you asked kind of what are we doing on the show, and part of the reason why I do this show is because I think that a lot of my friends have really interesting journeys, and you don't get to interview your friends.
Right.
Like there's so much that I don't even know about you, even though we've been friends now like 20 years.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna uncover
I'm
it all
not
today.
actually English.
I keep waiting for the real voice to come out.
Des Moines.
The Nebraska. Yeah, exactly. So you said you knew early on you wanted to be around music. Tell me, how did that happen? How did you know that? And specifically, can you remember the first record that made you feel that way?
So I don't know if it was a record per se. My earliest memories were my father played piano, and in a very English way, we weren't very communicative in the feeling department, which is kind of standard English thing.
Sure.
But from a really young age, if he was on the piano, I could tell you exactly what his mood was or what emotionally was going on.
Oh, wow.
And so, and later in life, when my parents separated and he was going through a rough time, I remember a very vivid time that we're in his house. He's playing piano, and he played a lot of blues and jazz and stuff. And he was playing. I was sitting next to him on the piano stool, and we both started crying. Nothing was said.
Yeah.
We knew exactly what was going on.
Wow.
But going back to when we were young, when I was young, I'm that annoying kid that started with chopsticks on pots and pans.
Uh-huh.
And banging on things and tapping on
You
things.
still do that?
Exactly. I've got in the car right now, I have drumsticks, shakers, and little tambourine finger things.
Amazing.
Because it's just been that nasty habit. So at about age 10, I got my first drum kit.
Okay.
The first record I remember distinctly playing drums to was in the garage at our house in the country. The big 70s headphones with the curly cord to the record player, playing to Band on the Run by Wings.
Oh, cool. I love that.
The memorable albums, I remember things like when I'm much younger, obviously the Grease album, come on. And then I'm old. Am I old? I'm old.
Couple of years.
But there was
We're close.
a kids show called the Wombles in
Oh,
England.
I didn't know that.
And the Wombles had a double album thing, and I remember being so excited about him, the double album, because in those days, kids, you won't remember this, but you used to read the liner notes,
Yeah.
you had the pictures,
For sure.
and while you listened to the record, it's funny because we were talking about this to somebody else, that the thing that I think is missing, well, it's completely gone now, but the thing about the passion that we used to have around vinyl was you put it on, you sat down, and you had to listen to it all the way through because you couldn't just skip through it.
Yeah.
And I always remember saying that, you'd go, oh, track 3, it's a bit weak, a bit weak. By the third time you've listened to the record, track 3 is the one that's now stuck with you because you had to listen to it and B-sides and stuff. But so I started young. I got out of school early. I was in the band at school. We had a marching band. I was a drummer in the band. But my brother's best friend, who's now a big composer, had a studio in London. It was, he was a session guy back then. Actually, when my brother and he met, he was 17. They were 17. He was a guitar player and a sort of some dodgy band out of uni or something in England.
Yeah.
And so I would hang out when he's like, oh, I got to drag my little brother around. Would go to this guy's house and he would have synths everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got the bug of synth stuff, the tech side of it. I'm not, like, unlike you guys, like I'm not a DJ, I'm not a fan in the traditional sense of music.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessed with the production of music,
Mm-hmm.
how it's made, how it's put together. So
Yeah.
my early years were spent hanging out either at his house, fiddling with like Junos and the early Roland stuff and
Yeah.
the mini Moogs, memory Moogs, those stuff.
Yeah.
And then after that experience I told you about of going to studios and trying to get a job in a suit and stuff, he was like, well, why don't you come and help me, be my right hand assistant?
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, because I can make a mean cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But what was brilliant about the 80s was it was the birth of synth, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the 70s synth stuff where it was room size stuff,
Right.
we're now into the Rolands and the Prophet Fives and the,
Sure, like electronic.
but the original stuff, which
Yeah.
to me was just the best. Because
Yeah.
in London at the time, we were around bands like Ultravox and Depeche Mode and Duran Duran and bands like that heavily were influenced by synths and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I got caught up in. We were fortunate because he had a thing called the Fairlight,
Okay.
and the Fairlight was the first polyphonic sequencing computer ever.
Okay.
Synclavier was also around about the same time, but the Fairlight was this massive. The actual computer part was about 5 foot by 2 foot. It was massive, and
Yeah.
part of my job was to lug that around at sessions and stuff. And it was amazing for musicians because you could actually now sequence without it being pulse sequencing.
Right.
Many years later, when Facebook came out, he was on Facebook, and to test out whether it was him or somebody from his company just being fake Facebook, I go, so is this you or is this somebody from the studio? He goes, Fairlight, Stairs, Trident. I was like, it's him. So in the 80s, we were doing a session at a studio in London called Trident, and the elevator was small, and the flight case for this computer was massive. So I was like, I got to take this down the stairs, right? So me being, adventurous, again, it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's about £100,000 worth of computer, dollars, pounds, money-wise.
Yeah.
And so I, in my inevitable wisdom, go, okay, this will be easy. So I start bump, the first couple of stairs, bump, bugger, and it goes and it goes flying down the stairs. So the interesting thing was when I took it to the place that services them, you take it in, and there's just a room full of these things being serviced, because I don't think I was the only person, but I had a couple of mishaps.
You're like, it's like the genius part. You're like, I don't know how this happened. It just stopped working.
I blew up a memory moog by putting, we were in a session, and I plugged it in. In England, we have 210 volts, or whatever, 240, whatever. And after I plugged it in, it smelled the burn and go, what's that transformer there for? Okay. So I started working with him in studio.
Yeah.
So engineering, programming.
So did you know at this point, I mean, like you said, your father, you came from a pretty traditional family. I think your father had been very successful, right?
Yeah, but in chocolate
Yeah.
and advertising, billboard stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing exciting for me.
No, but what was did you know at that moment that this was going to be your path? And was that okay with your family?
Well, I'm 50 and I still don't know what my path is, but as close as it gets.
Sure.
My luck on that was that I'm the youngest of three, so
they figured,
by the time it got to me, and I give credit to my sister, but because my brother had to toe the line and go to university and follow the family business, and my sister is very independent and very strong-willed and grew up a fast-paced life. We grew up in central London. It was pretty fast-paced anyway, but she's earned her stripes to be who she is now at Vogue and stuff. But 18, she was dating Brian Ferry and stuff. So my parents kind of it was beaten out of them. She beat them. They were like, just fine.
Yeah.
So by the time it came to me, I'm like, hi. They're like, and you are,
Sure.
I was like, it was like a real job. No,
Yeah.
I was out because it came out of my lifestyle. I was
Yeah.
out every night at the club. The club scene in London was amazing in the 80s. It was
course.
just, my peers have gone on to, Tom Dixon is a legendary designer. There's so many people that have come out of the crowd that I came from.
What was a first big club night or a club night that you remember?
The one that was the most, in fact, it was called Titanic.
Okay.
And it was in this...
That's before the movie, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
After
this
the ship,
This was
before the movie.
early 80s.
Yeah.
And it was behind a place called Berkeley Square, which is a very posh part of town, Mayfair. And I think it was a deserted theatre or something. And you would go downstairs, and there were bands like, again, my friends had this band called Funkapolitan that you can track. Each member of that band have gone on to do pretty interesting stuff. And it was a real, it was the days where obviously you didn't pay to get in. It was, if they knew your face, you were in. And it was fashion, and it was music, and it was everyone was up and coming, as in the energy was like, we're going to do something, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it was a who's who would show up there. Like if there was, I remember distinctly having a discussion with Green from Scritti Politti about tech stuff, and I must have been really young. So
I'm sure.
Titanic was the first one. Then we had the original Café de Paris, which was, again, that really set my tone of music, which was eclectic in the sense that he would play James Brown, then go into an Eartha Kitt song, then go into a Africa Bambaataa, then go into Nina Simone. I mean, it was just this really eclectic, chuck in a bit of blancmange,
Sure. It's interesting. I mean, I always tell that story that, there's open format now is a thing.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, guys, I don't know, a lot of the guys we know, like that play what they feel is going to work in the room at the time, right? Is you'd sort of consider that open format. Now that's a genre or a style of DJing.
Right.
For 20 years, everything's been so genre specific.
Yeah.
But before that, when we grew up, it was you play what you feel in the moment.
Yeah. And to keep the room moving. Because I think that's the art of, I think we've had this discussion before about the art of a DJ.
Yeah.
Is knowing either to, I'm going to play, as you said, play my genre specific thing, and if you like it, you like it. If not, tough shit.
Sure.
Or the art of a real DJ, which is to read a room and keep the flow going and understand who his audience is.
Yeah.
But also give them something new and different to sort of play with. I think that was kind of fun.
So I got to tell a quick story because, we haven't even gotten to what you do and and why you're here. But this is all fascinating stuff. But,
gets better.
So, when I tell people, if I introduce you to somebody and he's this, I say he's called the king of the A-list, and, he does all this amazing stuff with celebrities and experiences and very cool stuff. But I always tell this story because, like you, I grew up in the clubs. And then when I got into the business, I was out every night. And so I learned early on that, I got to know every DJ in town and I got to know a lot of the promoters. So I could get on any guest list in the city. When I was, not anymore. Now I can't get into Denny's.
Yeah.
But in my 20s, I could get in anywhere.
Yeah.
Or I should say I could get on the list.
Yeah.
Now getting in,
whole different ball game.
It's a different ball game, right? And so I would go and I'm on the list, so and so's list, and then I would either walk right in, or you'd wait and argue for 20 minutes, or who knows what, depending on a whole bunch of things. And then when I met you, I remember right after we met, you were like, meet me at. Now I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was at Hollywood Athletic Club.
Oh God, yeah.
Or somewhere around there.
Right.
And so we meet in the parking lot, and we're walking through, and I noticed we didn't stop walking until we were sitting down.
Right.
Like right up to the front, and we paused for a split second to shake the bouncer's hand, and it didn't hit me until a couple more times we went out that what you did that I didn't get until later is you knew every bouncer, every doorman.
Yeah.
And I know you also knew the guys that
Yeah,
ran the
yeah.
place, whatever, but you knew the guy out front. And so there was no hassle with the list. They were
Yeah.
never checking the list for your name.
Yeah.
Because you knew, and it's still today, that's like such a brilliant thing that never occurred to me.
Not intentional, but it's my father gave me a poem when I was about 13, which is "If" by Kipling, and I'll paraphrase it because I obviously can't remember it, although I have it on the wall. It talks about if you can hold your head amongst kings and amongst the working man,
Sure.
then you're a man.
Yeah.
Right? That sort of premise of
Yeah.
that if you differentiate between someone, because I watch it all the time, people rocking up to the door, talking to the doorman like they're dirt, going, I know the owner. Of
course.
Well, if you can't get past the doorman,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter who you know.
Yeah.
So it wasn't intentional. I just, I learned all my hospitality skills from my mother, and it was you catch more bees with honey.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
when we do what we do, when something goes horrendously wrong, screaming doesn't fix it. Finding people to talk to and go, hey, can you help me fix this?
Yeah.
Usually is the things that gets you out of. It's got me out of all sorts of muddles. Where, if you just remember that there is, I get annoyed with people in Hollywood who think that their title on their card or their paycheck means that they're different, because it doesn't. I'm a huge advocate of anti-bullying. I don't like bullies, and I think people who think that they are
Sure.
better than somebody, so it's pet peeve. But I think it's just that literally I was fortunate that the jobs that I had going back early was so what can I do that you're allowed to stay up late, misbehave, and hang out with, cool people and hot models.
Yeah.
Oh, it seems like nightlife,
Yeah.
Because it all started by accident, because I'd be out all the time, like, we'd see each other out.
Yeah.
And yes, my friends would be hosting them, but I think my first LA memory, which was pretty cool, was I got here and I thought, okay, well, the way to establish, I'm in a new city, I've only been here 6 months, what could I do? I'll throw a party.
Mm-hmm.
So a friend of mine's dad had a house up on Benedict Canyon, and he was selling it, so it was empty. I said, can I throw a party? They're like, yeah, this is 90, somewhere 90. And so I called everyone I knew, because in those days you had to call people, because we didn't have email and stuff. And, and even made little flyers on, you print out. And, and we had about 600 people.
And what was the party? Was it
It was old school style house party where he said I could have the house. I got a friend to do the bar, which meant we went to Costco and bought booze, and somebody did it. And a friend of mine DJ'd, great DJ. Any of my parties is all about the music, and it's not about how fabulous, my own ones.
Sure.
But the bit we left out was in England. So I worked in studios, worked a few other things. I worked in radio promotion for a long time.
Right.
And so worked with lots of fun bands. And again, because I was part of the scene.
That was an Anglo plugin?
Anglo plugin, yeah.
Okay.
So we worked with, tons of bands. But one of them was a thing called Boogie Box High, which was a secret project that George Michael did for his cousin. Where,
oh, wow. I don't even know that.
Yeah, they did Jive Talking was the song. And the backing vocal sounded remarkably like a certain George Michael, but it wasn't credited. Right? But I knew him socially because we'd be out in the clubs and stuff.
Sure.
So when I got to LA, he was living here, and so he came to the party. So literally it was like, who the hell's this English guy? He's 20-something years old. He's got 600 people at a party, and George Michael's here. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then George and Michael Littman were also investors in the Roxbury.
Uh-huh.
So I used to live on DeLong Parade, just up the road from it. And I get a call, hey, we're going to the opening of this club. You want to come with? I'm like, 20-something years old, rocking into the opening with him. Yes.
Kind of.
And it was like you said, the crowd parted, and I flowed in behind the VIP room at the Roxbury in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Was off the chain. There wasn't paparazzi. There were 3 people.
Yeah.
Paparazzi. So it was great. So I took that party, and people would say, how do you get these people, to the party? I go, well, they're just friends of mine. So every year I would do a Christmas/late birthday party at my friend Irving's house up in the Truesdale Estates. It started off with, 600, 800 people, next year 1,000 people, next year 1,500 people. We stopped it when it hit 2,500, and that again was great DJs,
Sure.
Sean Perry, different people come in and play, spend all the money on security,
Yeah.
and inside just bar and nothing, right?
Yeah.
Just great people.
Yeah.
And because it was
were people paying to come?
no, hell no. No. This is
Yeah.
the thing that I did every year.
Yeah.
Because,
So this wasn't a business.
No. This
Right.
was, this was, in hindsight, this was laying the foundation, but it was because I was already working at the studio out here because I
Yeah.
ended up, we're all over the shop, but I ended up when I came out here going to work for the guy I worked for in England because he had
Okay.
now moved out here,
Okay.
become an established composer.
Yeah.
He's now currently probably the biggest, undoubtedly out here. And so
That's Hans Zimmer.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I was employee number one at Media Ventures, which was Hans Zimmer's studio. Well, it wasn't even a studio back then. We had rented half of a place called Wilder Brothers on Santa Monica Boulevard,
Okay.
cleared out the control room and put his gear all in flight cases.
Yeah.
And part of my job was to reset up the rig and rewire it. And so I ended up running sort of operations amongst everything else. And at night then would leave and go to the Olive because the Olive was open till late.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very cool. But I would do this party, and as it got bigger and bigger, people go, how do we get these people to come to our events? I was like, I don't know, pay me, And then it was like, well, how do we get our product into the hands of these people? Because
Yeah.
any band that I'd worked with, because after I left Hans, when I started Nico Network, one of the first things I was doing was artist relations, a place like Warner's, independent artist relations. So I would produce big record release parties, I'd produce end of tour events, I would do during the tour hospitality stuff. And so I would invite everyone to come to this party. So it was a real sort of who's who of both artists, executives, club people nothing to do with entertainment, which is what I love. So you would have in a room some of the biggest people, like lawyers and musicians, talking to somebody and find out they're the busboy from my favorite restaurant. And you would see this great sort of synergy of people just talking about stuff, not about, so what do you do? And
Right.
can I talk to you? Are you important enough?
Right.
Because it was so hard to get in,
Yeah.
there's no VIP room, everyone's equal in
Yeah.
that room. And it was a really good vibe. And that's to me what clubs used to be like and what parties used to be like.
Totally. So there's a couple of things I want to dig into
Yeah.
there, but I want to take a quick step back. Why did they call you the Bagel Man?
Ha-ha! So, I've got a face for radio. I'm a little bigger than the average bear, so I like my food. So back in the mid-'80s, there were some really great clubs, but like here, they closed at sort of 1-ish, 2-ish. So there was a really good movement of good underground sort of parties. And my favorite one was at a friend of mine, Phil Dirtbox. His parents had a restaurant up by Charing Cross Road. And so we'd all end up back there, and everyone for some reason would have the munchies, and there was a lot of smoke in the room and stuff.
Strange.
So, I don't know, it's crazy. So I never really liked smoking. It was really weird. So I said, all right, I'll be back in a minute. And I had a little red Golf at the time, and I drove down to the east end of London to a place called Brick Lane. And in Brick Lane, they have a 24-hour bagel bake. And usually at 3 in the morning, there's a line of people outside because the fresh, hot bagels were cooking. So I thought, right, I'll buy a bag of bagels with cream cheese and smoked salmon. So I bought the bag, I drove back to the club, and I sold them for cash, right? Just out of the bag. I was like, oh, this is good. So next week, I drove down there, and I bought a bag of bagels, a tub of cream cheese, and a slab of salmon.
Yeah.
So cheaper.
Yeah.
Go back, and at the restaurant, in the kitchen, I made them myself, and I sold them again for cash.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is good. So then I thought, right. So out of my mother's kitchen, I started making, buying the bagels and making them and wrapping them in cling foil and then going outside the clubs that I'd already be going to anyway. So I'd have a big old overcoat and I'd have bagels in there. So I'd go into the VIP room of the Limelight. And,
inside the club.
Oh, sometimes, but surreptitiously, right? And then
That's great.
Boy George or people like that would be in the chucking bagels. But then I had exchange students who were standing outside.
Yeah.
Now, I went to school for a bit in America. And I say a bit because me and school never really got on.
Here in LA?
No, it was actually in Boston, just outside
Okay.
Boston, an alternative high school there.
The good kind.
Yeah. I made it through SATs. Didn't quite make it past that, but they sent me back to England. Whole
Uh-huh.
other story. So anyway, I'd have exchange students that would have wicker baskets with, because now I'd got the bagel bake to make them, wrap them, put my logo on.
Yeah.
Because having gone to school in America, I was all Americanized. So it's all about the baseball hat with the logo. This is before the internet. This is before anything.
Sure.
So we had stickers, and I'd stick stickers all over town. Like you'd stop at a light, and there's the Big Bang Bagel Company.
Uh-huh.
And it was just a goof. It only lasted, I want to say, maybe 9 months, 10
Oh,
months,
wow.
right?
Yeah.
Because I got offered a tour, and I went on tour. I was like, that
What
sounds
was the
more
tour?
fun. Just to go do merch, I think, on a tour. It was, I don't know. It was the 80s. Things were a bit
Who was
blurry
the
for
band?
me back then.
Oh,
I can't
we don't
remember.
remember. Okay.
I don't remember much of the 80s.
I
But
get
the
it.
Big Bang Bagel Company, we had aprons with the logo on it, and the kids would go down Kings Road and Fulham Road into stores and sell bagels then. But every night, they would be outside all the clubs that I would normally be at.
Yeah.
Now, were they the freshest bagels by 11 o'clock at night? No, but it was cash in the 80s. So it didn't last long, but literally for years and years and years, I'd be in New York at the New Music Seminar. Somebody would come and go, "Are you the bagel man?" I was like, "Yes." So listen, at
Yeah,
least it's,
there's
it
branding.
made its mark. It was very, very brief, but
Fantastic.
it was a great time in London again.
And then why'd you move to LA?
Have you seen the weather here?
Yeah.
Literally, I'm as shallow as
why
a
I
kiddie
moved.
pool. I'm as shallow as a kiddie pool. I came out here for a friend of mine's wedding for a week. And
Is that Adam?
yeah,
Yeah,
Adam,
yeah.
who you know,
Our mutual friend.
And I came out for their wedding, and I was like, well, this is great. I knew so many people here. And because the great thing about music is it is the international language, right?
Yeah.
So you can pretty much go to any city in the world and find your people.
Yeah.
And so London at the time was miserable. It was 89. It was the end of it was a recession. It was end of Thatcher. And it was just miserable because I remember distinctly sitting in my flat in London. I came back briefly for a week or so. I get a phone call from somebody saying, "Would you be interested in coming out here and just helping?" I think it was a video production company, repping directors. I was like, radio promotion, repping directors, same thing, boom, yes. So literally it was a 2-day decision in London. Came out here, rented out my flat in London, moved into Adam's old apartment because now he'd got married. And the rest, as they say, is history. I couldn't imagine. At 10 years in LA, I sold my house in London.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm done. I'm here. So
Yeah.
I've been here 27 years
Brilliant.
from that one wedding.
Yeah.
And they're still together.
Yeah.
Miracle. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
So why? So at a certain point, you started your own thing, Nico
Yeah.
Network,
Yeah.
which the way you just described it, I think makes perfect sense. Is that people want to be part of your network, so brands or whoever can buy in and
It actually started a little bit more sort of, maybe it's organic. After I left Hans, I went to Fox Music for a bit.
Okay.
So I worked at Fox Music. That's where I got my visa. And then on to getting a green card. Once I had that, then I could do what I wanted to do. So I started Nico Network. Initially, as you said, it was helping people with their lists and access to people, because I was out all the time. These people, my friends, no big deal. This is before people were doing it in the sort of way that people do it now.
like the sort of celebrity wrangler
Yeah,
or
but
the
back then, we didn't call
influencer.
it.
Right.
Well, yeah, I have that word influencer got just so ruined. But
Sure.
yes, I was one of the first, wranglers, I suppose, and influencer wranglers. I think there was an article in 1990 or something that Los Angeles Magazine did a thing, You Mean You Don't Know Nico, which was great.
Yeah.
And they called me a social network before social networks arrived, because I collect people. My commodity is people. To the point that if you write, back in the day, you'd write your number on a beer mat. I put that in the database, but I then stick it onto a piece of paper, into a ring binder. So I have everything, every piece of paper I've ever been given.
I have every business card.
I've tons and tons of business cards. It's quite tragic.
It's cool.
But
No, it's a
what
fun
that
thing.
did was, be able to help people, first of all, enhance their events. Then what would happen was when I was doing artist relations independently for Warners and stuff, we would do these great parties, but it got to the point where, so we would curate the list, but the experience wasn't right. So it got to the point.
If you're just bringing people to someone else's.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how it evolved.
Sure.
It was then like, well, we've given stuff to these people, we've invited them to your thing, but it's not connecting, because we're of the school that if you spend $1 million on a party room and you invite the wrong people, everyone's like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Or you go to a dive bar with the right people who are like, I'm not leaving.
Best night of my life.
It's a best night, right? Hot, sweaty, smoky bars that we've been to in the day with a great DJ.
Great.
Versus $1 million party. Yeah. So that's where I moved into trying to produce the experience as well.
So before that though, how did you know, how was the decision to start your own company? Because before that you'd been working, I mean, I guess the bagel thing, but
no, easy.
Yeah.
I don't play well with others.
Okay. And you were conscious of that at the time.
Yeah, I've always been. Unfortunately, radio promotion is good because you kind of are out there self-selling.
Yeah.
I never worked for a record label. We worked with lots of them because the bureaucracy. I'm a problem solver. I'm instinctively, if I see a problem, I'll fix it. What I learned, especially at Fox, was the art of a corporation is they put bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Specifically for people to go around.
Sure.
People like us see the bump, we go, if you move the bump out of the way, it'd be really clear.
Yeah.
They don't want us there.
Right.
Because now they know that we're not controllable.
Yeah.
And I always like the fact of being my own. Do I like being my own boss? It goes back and forth.
I know the feeling.
But I'm such. I like stuff to go right, and so if I see a problem, I'll go in and fix it.
So talk about that for a minute. What do you not like about being your own boss?
That when you get to a certain size, maybe I'll get there. That what we love about it being our own boss is the creative freedom to do stuff and have great ideas.
Yeah.
As it gets bigger and you do bigger projects, you have to step back from that and you end up managing people.
Right.
And I like being in the trenches.
Yeah.
But the next phase is to find people that are good at that. And so that's the thing I think about any entrepreneur. It's the art of knowing when to let go. I think is a real key, as in handing off control to. So if you don't want to do the accounting stuff, find somebody that knows what they're doing and trust that they're doing the best they could do. I have trouble with that still.
Yeah. That's understandable.
But it's
understandable, especially because, it's your name, it's your face, it's your personal relationships.
Yeah.
That people are coming for.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I think it's a really interesting, if we were in business school, I think this is a fascinating case of like, how do you scale a person?
So, okay, this comes up a lot, and I think we're starting to get there because I've got multiple projects on at the moment, and one of the big ones that we're doing. So we're doing an incentive travel package for a big tech company, and the CEO I've known personally for some time, and he goes, "I think I've got something," and so now it's a business deal with him, and we're doing a fabulous trip. We presented 4 amazing experiences, and he picked one. And what I did was I brought in a couple of my key people, so they could be comfortable early on that this person's probably going to be running the package. So it's how do you, because for a long time, remember I said I didn't want to give up that control because it was all about me. And what I realized is it's not about me. It's why it's called Nico Network. It's a network of really competent experts in their field who understand the ethos of what Nico Network is about. The name, I hope, at some point becomes as relevant or irrelevant as David Geffen to the Geffen Company, or where it's just a name.
Sure.
But at the moment, of course, it's been based around, what are the brand, messages. Hopefully what we give is that if it's a Nico experience, it's going to be it's going to have a wow factor. It's going
Yeah.
to be, if it's for a traditional event, it's going to be bulletproof. It's going to be, if there's a problem, we're going to have solved it before you even know it's happened.
Yeah.
If it's one of our trips or experiences for a high net worth client, it's going to have an element of wow that just because they can afford the jets and the planes and the islands, whatever, we have to build in something that they go, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it doesn't have to be big, but it's something that we found that if for people that can afford, quote unquote, anything, it's the little things.
Sure.
I have a client, we're doing Coachella again. We have a client that's coming to Coachella, and it's a big production, you know.
So give us an example. What does that mean?
We've got a massive house for him
Okay.
that will staff drivers. He's got access to wherever he needs to go on site. You know, we've got a couple of things that other people aren't getting on site that are great. But the thing he's most excited about is he keeps saying, is there anywhere I can meet group love? Doesn't care about Radiohead, doesn't care about those.
Yeah.
He goes, I love indie,
Yeah.
up and coming, or
Sure.
good bands. So if you know those people, let me know.
I'm sure we can figure
But
it
that's
out.
the thing. Like, we did a thing for another client where we brought 40 guests to LA for a 5-day event, where every day we had something. We had dinners and we had access to TV shows, and we took them behind the scenes of studios.
Yeah.
And then he wanted his favorite band at the time. We did a private show at Sayers Club with his favorite band. But we had 40 people and he didn't want a bus. So I had 14 SUVs. And on a Friday and Saturday night, trying to move 14 SUVs around town, nightmare. So I hired 3 police outriders
Yeah.
so that we could stop the traffic.
Sure.
Why? Because it's LA and we can.
Yeah.
What was the result? That we didn't lose half the motorcade going to the restaurant.
Yeah.
And what was the value for the client to feel like the president? Priceless.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Because those are the things he's going to go back and tell his friends, not
Right.
that he took over a hotel and
Sure.
we did this, that, and the other. It was
Yeah.
like, this is something that people can't do. So we try to find that in everything we're doing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we've got a fun one on this trip that we're about to do, the one that we're not telling on, so hopefully no one's listening. Hopefully this will go afterwards.
Yeah. No one listens.
No one listens to this, right?
No, it's good. It's good we're doing this because I have a lot of billionaires listen to the show.
Good, because this
So
is,
you're
you
going
know,
to get a lot of business out of this.
we're taking them to Miami, and then we're not telling them, we're going to have 3 seaplanes lined up at the harbor, and we're flying the 3 seaplanes in formation and landing in Bimini, which is the most westerly Bahama Islands, Bahamian Islands. And literally the planes will then slide up onto the beach, sandy white beach, and they'll get out straight to the resort. Because Bimini is 7 miles long and 300 yards wide. So
That's amazing.
it's just the wow factor that we're not telling them. Because Miami, we're going to have a great time. We've
Yeah.
got everything lined
Sure.
up. But how can we do something that's great? Because
Interesting.
we'll do from a dinner for 4 people in a simple location to 4,000 in a weird place. I think we've done, the biggest one was 4,000 people. It was for a label, and it was a 5-day experience. Lots of stuff happening and a lot of logistics. Like I love, the more
course.
logistics, the better. You know, flights, hotels, activations, ground transportation, security details, production.
Yeah.
Boom. It's great. I love that.
So I want to dig into a couple of those things. First of all, you said something earlier that you collect people.
Yeah.
So teach me how to do that.
It's quite simple. Be you.
Okay.
Because I don't think, you know, I saw something the other night that made my skin crawl. I was at an event, it was a foundation thing, and there were a lot of big ballers there, like VCs and money people and power brokers and stuff. And
Yeah, I was booked that night.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Your chair was there. But, yeah. And there were these 2 very, very big people in the tech world talking, and they're friends of mine, but they were in a heated discussion. So I was just standing back, waiting, watching, right? And some guy, don't know who, stormed in, and in the middle of the conversation, like, excuse me, are you so-and-so? Here, I just wanted to meet you. Here's my card. Can I get your card? I want to follow up with you later. I'm like, if you have no sense of people's space,
Yeah.
you can't be in the people business.
Well, that's the thing about, you said be you, and so I said, well, but what if you're an asshole?
So you don't collect people. It's very simple. People are, I don't know. Actually, now you mention that, I'm me
Yeah.
when I do it
Yeah.
because I don't collect people with the intent of exploitation. I collect people that I think are interesting, eclectic, that I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't collect idiots,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't suffer fools. So, and I've run into that situation as well, where a few years ago there was an incident where I was at a restaurant opening, and the owners had given me a nice table. I was talking to a friend of mine, and they said, "Could this person sit at the table?" And they were loud and obnoxious and stuff. And I was like, "Could you please not, you know?"
Sorry again about that night. I was having
I
an
know,
off
but
night.
you were doing good.
It's not,
the point
it's not
was,
my usual.
The point was the person was like supposedly one of the Young Turks,
Yeah.
whatever, agent types.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I had them thrown off the table. Yeah. Now I'm nobody. Make it very clear that I'm nobody. But this person was just being loud and obnoxious. Now, if a loud and obnoxious person sitting at a table, it doesn't really matter who they are and their title. Going back to this thing, their title and their paycheck should make no difference about the way that you treat them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, for some time they would see me at things and kind of try and square off and be like, "Oh," I'm like, "You've got nothing I want. I don't care because you're not somebody I'd want to be around. The people I collect are people I like to be around." Not that I get invited to anything anymore, but as you said,
So the other thing that struck me, I remember that LA Magazine article that, at the time bragged that you had, 8,000 people in your BlackBerry, I think it was, or your Palm Pilot, whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember that thinking, how do you remember everyone? How do you remember who to invite to what and when? Like, how do you keep in touch?
It's not easy. And interestingly enough, it's harder, A, as we get older, and B, social media is an oxymoron because the more you're online, the less you're actually interacting with people, right? So, again, this week's Grammy week, so you bump into people that you haven't seen for ages, but you think you have because you see them online. It's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It is difficult, but you curate, like I curate. The objective is not to stay in touch with all 8,000 people.
Yeah.
Because now on Facebook, I maxed out at 5,000, but I don't collect randoms. And this is one of the irks that, excuse me, I'm sure we talk about around social media.
Mm-hmm.
To me, an influencer is not somebody with 13 million followers who then gets 100,000 likes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the math doesn't work out, right? So just because you troll and you collect millions of people, how does that make you an influencer? Because I believe that, quality versus quantity, that I can have more of a social impact on an experience or somebody's product by identifying 100 of the right people. We call it WORM. So WORM is word of relevant mouth, right? Because word of mouth is good, but word of relevant mouth is powerful. So every event is curated, and there's a process of thinking and discussing what is the essence of the brand, because it's no point inviting some of our people who are really into hip hop to a opening of a coffee company. It doesn't make sense.
Sure.
So I think part of the art of curation is understanding, goes back to the DJ discussion, goes back to understanding how to read a room, okay, and how to curate a room that you don't feel, what's the word, what's the word I'm looking for? So I'm having an old person moment, where there's not the separation of this one group over here, one group over here, nobody's talking to each other.
Sure.
I make a real strong effort on everything we put together, right? That there's this flow of a vibe that at some point everyone's going to have a point of reference that's going to make sense. So they'll be like, wow, this is great. Does it have the same effect for you? And you get a conversation going because we've created experiences within the experience that will generate that sort of conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's about people, right? Posting it on Instagram, does it help sales? In my experience, no. I mean, some people, if one more person goes, yeah, but if a Kardashian posts something, it'll sell. Well, you take that post, plus the tens of millions of dollars over the last 10 years that have been spent to build that brand,
Sure.
great.
Yeah.
But somebody that's a quote unquote fashion blogger that has tons of followers, does it actually sell? There is no metrics really.
Right.
So
Yeah, what I've found with that is it's a, I think, and we both work with brands, and they play the numbers game.
Yeah.
Because they don't know, right? They don't know the people
right.
personally, and they don't know, so they just go by the numbers, and
Yeah.
and that's just a very comfortable framework for how you do marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And my experience is like it always depends. And I always say, like, what the value of social media to a brand has more to do with who the brand is before they got to social media.
Right. But the thing that I find fascinating and is being proved in our political arena is it's not about demographics, it's about psychographics.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The more you understand what you have to say to that person rather than what that person's background is, or it's how you tailor that message to them. And unfortunately we've seen it work extremely well both in England and America
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but I think that is relevant to you because, again, and I've been to dozens of your events, and you see wealthy people and struggling.
Right.
Right. You don't see a specific demographic.
Specific and specifically for that reason, because I don't believe. I think why do you have that mix of people? Like when we did Nespresso, why was there a disparate group of people? Well, it's kind of why Mercedes makes a C-Class and a 550 and a Maybach, right? Mm-hmm. Aspiration is just as important as of having it, right?
Yeah.
So by having that group of people in a room, from my experience, I found that the very successful people say, I really love this party because there was these creative up-and-coming types that have fresh new ideas, and
right.
It was really good sort of mingling with them. And the young, up-and-comings go, oh my God, it was great to be in a room with these legends and icons who were talking to me about what we do. And you see this connection of people.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what fuels me. Why do I do what I do? Is to watch people's faces.
So how do you sell that? How have you
Badly.
successfully? No, but how do you sell that to brands, right? Whose instinct in their training tells them demographics and metrics, right?
Well, I don't know the best way to answer that, because I've been fortunate and unfortunate that most of the projects that we've done in the last few years have been incoming. I'm actually in the process of trying to work out that question in order to put the right sort of deck, or they want it to go out there, because luckily I haven't cold called, and I don't know the answer to that, because it's changing the way of people's thinking.
I think, you're kind of, we're in the same boat with that, right? And I always say, I'm not the guy to convince people that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm the guy that if you know this is the right thing to do, I'm the one that can help you figure out how to do it the best, and let's make it happen. Yeah. Right? But I've had clients say, okay, sell me on, why am I investing all this money in social media? I go, if you don't know the answer to that, I'm not the one for you. Yeah. And yet that's hard, I think, as a business owner, is, it's hard to walk away from an opportunity.
It's tricky. It is a double-edged sword, because you get dangerously close to getting into that area that we were talking about that's not conducive to good business, which is, I don't advertise what I do. Again, I'm fortunate. There's been, there was an article towards the end of last year in Forbes about our destination stuff, where I had 2 articles recently where they referred to me as the dream weaver, which I kind of love, because that's what it is. It's like, you tell me what you want. You tell me what your objective is, what you're trying to do, and I'll tell you how to get there. Yeah. But if I've got to convince you how to, because you're not going to like what I have, because my experience with when they've come to me and said, pitch us, the problem is nobody wants you to tell them their baby's ugly,
Right.
right? And with most experiences that I've seen where people who don't get it have come to us and said, what do you think? How would you do this? First, we'd waste our time putting a big old presentation together. The second thing, and we make them pay for that. We don't do it for free anymore. The other thing is when you've built a full marketing strategy for a brand and go, this will work, right? It's an integrated strategy. It covers your social media, your advertising. It covers your live events. There's a reason these things happen. They have to work together. You can't start pulling slices of the pie out and expect it to be a full pie. Because they do that. They go, okay, this is great, but we just want to do that and that. You go, well, yeah, but a wheel doesn't go round with just two spokes.
Right.
Oh, we don't spend that money. Well, but then you're going to lose 3 times that money because I will guarantee you, and I think you could probably say it as well, you can almost guarantee the success or failure of a brand launch based on that approach.
I mean, I had something recently where, the short version is they told me what they wanted to do, and I said, that's $500,000 to do what you said. And they said, okay, cool. Well, what if we have 50? And I go, if you have 50, keep it in your pocket.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need it.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
I've had that conversation with clients where we've told them how much it's going to cost, and I've said to them, so let's, as you said, so let's not do it.
Let's not do it.
I did have a good one where it was for a private client, because we've moved a lot more into the private client or corporate client with experiences, and less of the traditional marketing and stuff because of that reason.
I think it's smart.
It's a hybrid. I don't consider myself a traditional event planner because there's some fabulous event planners.
Yeah.
We experience curators because we look at everything, not just what's inside the room. We look at all the logistics getting to and from it.
So I want to talk about that for a second, and then they're going to kick us out of the room pretty soon. But
I have that effect on people. Okay.
But you talk about this attention to detail, and I've been to dozens of your events, and I've witnessed that. I know for myself, I don't score myself very high on attention to detail, except things I've learned along the way. Like do you know what I mean? Like I know a lot about permitting.
Yeah.
But only because we've
had to
figure that out, right? But I wouldn't say that that's a natural strength for me.
Right.
And so
I love it.
Yeah. How do you do it? How does someone learn that?
So again, I look at my history, right? The thing that stands out is I'm a how it works guy. If I'm in here, if I'm in a studio, I'm going to fiddle around with stuff to find out how it works, right? Yeah. So for me, what I've learned is the devil's in the details, right? So when somebody comes up with a big idea, it's actually down to some of the smallest things, from my experience, that can trip it up. So what I love to do is make sure that those little things, right, are covered. Permitting, very important, but I remember doing a gig. I mean, anything that's gone wrong or can go wrong has gone wrong. So that's part of the experience, right? I just love the minutia, because the big idea is kind of the easy part. As you know, when somebody comes up with a big idea, that's great.
Right.
Now, how are you actually going to make that happen?
Right.
And that's where the network comes in, because we've got really, really good resources for great permitting people. Great. So that goes back to the point of how we build the structure is we look at what the overarching problem is, and then bring in the experts within that area that I'll oversee, because I trust implicitly that they'll do their job.
So one of the things I love about you is you use superpower.
I do?
I mean, you said, I think so. I think so, but, like all of us, I think we sometimes forget.
Yeah.
Right, and we see some opportunity that looks great and maybe doesn't match, and I've made that mistake. We've had talks over the years, right? And so I guess my question is, that happens from time to time. How do you get back?
From what?
How do you like it? So how do you, when you take a step that's maybe not the best for you,
right?
How do you then sort of regroup? What do you do
Okay.
internally to say, okay,
Yeah.
let me get back to what's really important?
And I've had that. I tell you one of the things, and it sounds counterintuitive, but the first thing is don't do it for the money. My experience is that I've been hired a couple of times to go in-house
Right.
with companies,
Yeah.
and they'll offer a lot of money. And in the conversation, they'll say everything I need to hear, which is you'll have a ton, you have people, da 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 da. And I go because the paycheck's big, right? And it only lasts a few months before you realize that the politics within whatever organization it is, it sucks the life out of you. It's difficult. It's difficult because you have to then trust that it's going to be okay. If on the last one, I made it about, again, 6 months. And luckily, I had a private client who were producing what I do. And I literally had that epiphany of like, oh my God, I love what I do. I thought I didn't love it because I've been doing songs. So I went to go do something else. And I realized that the intensity and the detail and the focus of doing an amazing experience for somebody and watching their face and listening to them have that reaction, doesn't matter what it is what fuels me. And if we get paid for doing it, good. But if you put money first, I think that's where you make the wrong turns, from my experience. How do you get back? Funnily enough, people like yourself, that you can pick up the phone and go, I think I want to kill someone. And somebody else going, I know that feeling. This is how I got out of it.
Sure.
But I think it's the key to that is trying to stay true. It's very difficult. Stay true to what it is that you're passionate about. I'm back in that mode. Last year I slipped out of it. But it's amazing because when you slip back into, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm passionate about, and my job is to make sure other people have a great experience, then it starts falling into place. Do you know what I mean? Last year I forgot what my purpose was, and subsequently nobody rang the doorbell. Then I had an epiphany of like, oh, but this is what I do. And then I stayed out of it. People started calling again. But, I'll take anyone that wants to call. We're happy to do anything for you. And I'm a whore. Yes, I'll do it for the money. No. I don't know if that helps.
No,
makes any sense.
No, it does help because we all have those moments. And I think having people that you can call that may not have the answer, but at least, have lived through it. I often say like when I mentor people or talk at schools or whatever, like a lot of this is learning that stuff's not going to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
Because when you're young, everything feels catastrophic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, here we get to an age where you're like, okay, well,
But again, that's the thing, that's what experience and also time, that annoying thing about, wisdom and age and stuff, we thought we could. And by the way, there is a real benefit to that because when we were young and we went, this is what we're going to do, we did it. There was no, I don't know, can we do that? I mean, the logistics of that, it's going to cost money. And then what are the permitting on that? We just did it.
Just do it.
We just did it. And if it went tits up, then we were like, we won't do it like that anymore. But we're still going to do that. I think that's the biggest problem. As we get older and we have responsibilities and stuff, we stop. I think this for everyone. We stop remembering that whatever it is we want to do, we can do. Right? It sounds super cheesy, but whatever you want to do, you can do. Right? That's a way to make it happen. Right?
So that takes us to our speed round.
Go for it.
But you kind of hit on it, but I'm gonna start with this anyway. So go back to 18-year-old Nico and give him one piece of advice.
Step away from them. Oh, that's a good one, actually. What would you say to they? I would say. I think funnily, I think it's not what I thought I was going to say. It would actually be focus. Because there was so much opportunity that I feel, was squandered because the world was our oyster. And there
Yeah.
was no, it was just a different time, the 80s.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a generalist now, which I'm glad I am. But I wonder what would have happened if I focused into one of the disciplines that I loved, because there were lots of stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if I continued producing records, if I continued in studio
Sure.
instead of bouncing off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be maybe focus.
Yeah. So this might be the same thing, but what was something you used to believe and then later realized you'd been wrong?
There is no tooth fairy. No.
Hey, my son's in there.
Right. Oh, what was?
keep that down.
Say that again.
What's something you used to believe and then later realized you were wrong?
Oh. Yeah. Just because they say you can't do it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Fuck yeah.
Just because I come from a very English family and an
Yeah.
English school where in England, in the boarding schools we went to, creative wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
Those schools were designed for building leaders of industry, army. So you would literally get physically beaten up, caned, whatever, if you had a creative idea.
Yeah.
Right? So I did not fare well at school. At one point, the headmaster goes, "This beating isn't working, is it?" I go, "No, not really." You know. So yeah, don't believe what they tell you.
Brilliant. What's a talent that you always wish you had more of?
Funnily enough, I think it's cooking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because my mum was a great cook,
Yeah.
and I used to cook with her, and I didn't. At one point, there would have been a complete divergence that they wanted to send me to hotel and catering school at one point. But I'd say, yeah, you know, or focus on my drumming, but that's just for, you know.
Yeah.
The music stuff seems to be, you know, it's a passion, but it's a hobby-ish
Yeah.
thing. But it'd be good to be able to cook better.
That's cool. I mean, I could definitely see you with a restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know
no,
if I
no,
would picture you in the
you
kitchen.
know why? That's hard work. I
Well,
can do the people part.
Sure. Yeah, that's what
But
I mean.
anyone you ask who owns a restaurant,
no, it's
that
a
is
slog.
that is hard work. I respect chefs and restaurant owners.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I'm way too lazy for that.
What other career would you attempt if you knew you couldn't fail?
Interesting. What career would I have attempted? I don't know if it would be in a different career, per se. I think I would have made a bunch of different decisions in the early direction, had I not had the mindset that we have as kids, or as, you know, that, this will never work, or that I'm not right for it. Or helicopter stunt pilot was one. That's always been on the books.
That'd be pretty amazing. If you knew you weren't going to die, that'd be.
Oh, I have
That'd
no
be
fear.
great.
I have no fear of that stuff. I mean, you've seen the video that's running on YouTube at the moment of
Yes,
me flying
in the
to,
plane.
I think it was to Turkey, and we hit the worst turbulence I've ever hit.
Yeah.
And it's got about 700,000 views at the moment, because
Yeah.
it was on. They used it on news channels and CBS stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing. I'm filming it. I'm talking to people. Because two things. A, there aren't that many planes that have ever come down in bad
For
turbulence.
Turbulence, yeah.
And if it did,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
So I don't have fear of heights. I don't have. My fear structure shifted a lot. You know. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if I worked for Nico Network, what would I hear you say over and over?
Oh, that's okay. I think it'd be attention to detail. You know, I find that with people, you know, I'll send them back to focus on finishing stuff, because it's all in the detail.
Yeah. That's why I couldn't work for Nico Network.
No, not to, but you know,
I
but
go,
the thing
"Shit,
that I'm working on at the moment
missed
is,
that."
because I'm trying to put together a new team, is
Yeah.
finding people in this town that are, and this will sound like such an old man's thing to say, but people who really want to work. It's very hard to find people in this town
Sure.
at the moment
Yeah.
who really want to work or
that's
learn
probably true
a
everywhere.
craft around, especially what we do, which is the art of people.
Yeah.
It's like, because I hear myself with people that are working for me going, go back and do that again. And it's so tedious, because,
Yeah.
you know.
So this is an interesting one, I think, for you because I know you have so many famous friends and
None of them call me.
interesting people around you, and I often meet people who, people go, "How do you know Nico?" And it's like, because everyone knows Nico. But so who would you be most excited to learn was a fan of yours?
Anybody at this point, anybody, as he sits at home waiting for an invite to anything, That's a true fact, though, by the way, because everyone assumes you're going to
Assume
be
you're
somewhere,
already there, yeah.
right? So they don't bother sending an invite because, like you said, usually if I walk up to the door you're in,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to just know somebody cares. Like who? What do you mean? How do you
I don't know. I mean, I know you come across people who your reputation precedes you in certain rooms, right? That they've been to an event.
It was Thailand. I said we weren't going to talk about that.
They've been to an event or they've heard of something or someone that they know or, whatever. And so I just wonder, is there anybody, that whose approval or praise or appreciation would be especially meaningful to you?
I don't think I was joking when I said anybody.
Okay.
I don't think that's
fine.
Because I don't. Funnily enough, I'd love to know if anyone did, because I don't think I've ever done this for that.
Yeah.
So I've actually no comprehension of who does or doesn't know or thinks what we do is good. It was interesting hearing the CEO of this company we're doing the project tell his team, because he's been to my stuff, the Nico experience is really amazing, and it's you're going to get the white glove stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just nice to hear it come. Look,
Yeah.
I'll take it from anybody.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a really interesting question because again, it comes back to being English. We're so self-deprecating that the thought of somebody actually thinking that would be great.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Do you
weird.
find it uncomfortable?
Yeah, incredibly. I don't like talking about myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is
That's why we had you here.
So this is why this is really difficult, because that's why I'm waffling and stuff.
No, it's brilliant.
I don't like that, and I'm not very good at taking compliments. So, but I would love to know if people
Yeah, sure.
have been to something we've done and think it was good. I
Yeah.
love that.
What movie have you seen the most in your life?
Okay. So that's quite easy. There's two. I'd say it'd be, and I'll never live this down, but every time it comes on, I'll watch it continually. Fifth Element,
Okay, that's not bad.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I think those are my two. Oh, and Shawshank Redemption. Those are the three that
Fantastic.
if they come on, like
Yeah.
the classics like Scarface,
Right,
and,
right.
those sort of things. But for some reason, if those ones
Yeah,
come on,
you just watch it.
I don't know what it is about Fifth Element, because
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I get
it's
it.
that outfit that
Yeah.
she's wearing.
And favorite DJ?
What's your handle? Do you know do I have a favorite DJ? I love what Adam does,
Yeah.
Adam 12, but I don't have a favorite DJ because I think I love
Yeah.
such eclectic stuff,
Different people did different. Yeah.
I don't have.
But we often find ourselves enjoying Adam 12 together.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
because he's a DJ that reads a room
Absolutely.
and plays to the room,
Yeah.
whereas Adam, AM
Yeah.
played his set.
Right.
And and I love
Totally.
mashups, but he played his set. If you
course.
liked it, you liked it. If you didn't, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't care.
Dude, thank you for doing
Oh,
this.
no.
This is brilliant.
Total pleasure.
So much fun to hear the stories. Where does everybody find Nico Network online?
So NicoNetwork.com. That's NICO
Yeah.
network. NicoNetwork.com.
And so, is there a social? Is there a place where you're particularly active on social?
Well, at the moment, that's an interesting question because there is a Nico Network Facebook, but the Nico Golfar Facebook is more active.
Okay.
And my own Instagram. No, not particularly, because I don't know if what I do.
Yeah.
We're working on that, which is ironic after this conversation about social.
No, I get it.
don't think for what I do,
Yeah.
it's necessarily the right medium, but we're working on that. If it is.
Cool.
But
Dude,
thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Awesome.
Okay, that's a wrap. That's Nico Golfar. Make a lot of money and then hire Nico to produce all your events and do cool stuff for you. In the meantime, leave us a comment on Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, whatever you want. It's Rebel Radio Net. And make sure you come back next week for more Rebel Radio.